be honored with one of the guests here tonight, who I think, if we're talking environmental stuff, I think she's one of our greatest natural resources and statesmen in the state of Connecticut. Miss Martha Dean is here.
Fantastic program. Thank you for inviting me. I really don't have anything to say except off the cuff, and I want to tell you about two developments that are very concerning nationwide. One of them you can read about in today's Wall Street Journal, and it's about this national forfeiture abuse going on, where the federal government comes in and claims that property is somehow connected to drug activity. And even though you're not connected to drug activity, this is a hotel owner in Massachusetts right now, where the local police have gone and made arrests over the past several years at various times, as they have in many hotels and at many businesses nationwide. But the federal government can come in and say, even though you're an innocent owner of the hotel, that they can grab the hotel and basically auction it off, and the federal government and the local government get to keep the proceeds. This is just an incredible scam. Also, cars are being stopped throughout the nation, where there's a search, and if you have, many people have their money in gold now and in cash, and if there's a search and they find gold or cash, they can just take it, and they're taking tens of thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars from people, and I've put some stories up on Facebook. Don't think it just happens in Tennessee. This is happening nationwide. This is a huge, huge problem, and there's a huge incentive because of the way the government gets to keep this money, whether they seize your guns, they go to your house for some other purpose, and they grab your guns at the same time and don't return them, or whether they take your cash or your gold or your business or your land or your building. This is really being underreported nationwide, but you need to pay attention to it. Now, I was just glad to see in this article in the Wall Street Journal today that the Institute for Justice, which is not a government organization, it's a private litigation group that operates out of Washington. It's a group that came in and defended Susan Kelo with the Little Pink House down in New London unsuccessfully. They're very, very good, but they were unsuccessful ultimately, in that case. And they've come in to help this property owner, and they're now looking at this type of case. Normally, they're fighting for economic rights in the arena of the right to start a small business and not be put out of business by regulation in favor of big companies. But now they're getting involved with this active forfeiture situation, which is incredible. So pay attention to it. You guys should be all over it. We should be all over it. The other area that I wasn't familiar with, but has come to my attention, that is just an area of national abuse. And again, like what I just mentioned with the forfeiture situation, there's this perverse incentive for the government to earn money off of selling something it doesn't own, and that's your kids. Yep. Your kids. And I am not being sensational. I would have thought a year ago that to say this, that this was something, sensational and untrue and an overstatement based on a few cases. But just in Connecticut, I understand that the state judicial system, by declaring that that parents are unfit to care for a child, and these may be very good parents, or there may be one parent who's not really great, but another parent that is. But if the court system can somehow declare that the child is best if it's not with its parents and goes to foster care, the state gets hundreds of thousands of dollars in the first year, immediately. And there's this national scandal. I know that it's really out of control in California. There are a lot of posts, a lot of national groups devoted to the situation right now. But your kids will be taken away. And again, it's sort of like taking away guns. They just need a reason to go to your house. It doesn't have to be about guns. They can be there for another reason and take your guns. And if you just happen to end up in the family court system for some reason that has nothing to do with unfit parents, they can just take your kids. And you would never think that this could happen to normal, law-abiding, healthy, productive families, and it is. So
unless your children don't have a birth certificate. If there's no Social Security number, they can't do it.
Yeah.
Where's the money?
The money comes from the federal government. The federal government pays the state of Connecticut. And it's become this nationwide racket in moving kids out of their private homes into foster care for money. And I would never have believed it. And it's not just through DCF. It's through the court system. This is a frightening thing, and I can't tell you how important it is to go back and study Nazi Germany, to study what events led up to. I remember wondering as a high school student, how could this happen? How could a country that was so advanced and civilized and educated and good people were there, and they didn't think this was happening. And now when I see a police car suddenly in a small town, all these police cars going down the road and they're doing whatever, and I think, am I like one of those Germans in Germany that just thought, oh, they're just getting some bad guy out of that house. I didn't realize, that they were rounding up the Jews or whatever. But we need to pay attention because this is very, very serious, and I'm not the kind of person to blow things up out of proportion and to scare people. That is not what my whole focus in my campaign was totally different, but I am so stunned by what I'm seeing, and I urge you to pay attention to these two developments. So on the latter development, I'm collecting information now. If you have any information about this, it's not just DCF. Don't think it's just that agency that's a problem. There's also another Wall Street Journal story from about a month ago. This took place in Pennsylvania. 2 judges were sent to prison. The judges were actually taking kids that were sent into the criminal court system for, minor random things, maybe swearing at a teacher or something like that. Not a good thing to do, but it's not something to put a kid in jail over. And they were sending these kids who had really done nothing to jail. And no one could figure out, these mothers who had lost their kids committed suicide. Good kids who were sent to jail committed suicide. And these mothers screaming on the televisions and the news cameras, crying and swearing at judges who had killed their kids. Well, finally, there was an investigation, and it was found that these judges had accepted millions of dollars as bribes for sending more kids to new prisons because the people who built the prisons were paying them off to send kids. I can't tell you how serious this is. I can't tell you how scary this is. But the only way we can collect these stories and work on this together is if we share information. Facebook's a good way to do it. It could be shut down at any time. Who knows who reads Facebook, ultimately where Facebook goes. But it's a good way to get information out there. It's a good way to share information for now. But we need to know who's on our side, and there are groups that are collecting information and working on these issues, and I just urge you to get involved because you think it's not going to happen to you, it's not going to happen to your family, and I'll give you one last story to tell you. We're heading in the direction where that's just not true. It will happen to all of us. I have a friend who was an organist at a church in the Farmington Valley area, and he was from Argentina, and I helped him with his green card and things once when he wasn't getting a good response from a lawyer. Just helped him out. And we wanted to say thank you, and he came to dinner, and I got to know a little bit about him. Well, when I invite a guest to dinner from another country, I read about their country so that I can be respectful and appreciative of the culture that they come from. And I was shocked when he told me the story. I told him about how in college I'd met some Argentinians, but I wasn't really impressed with them. They were not nice people. And he said, well, there are 2 types of Argentinians, Martha. I go to parties in Boston where there are Argentinians here in college, and there are 2 groups, and they don't like each other. And he said, just to give you an example, we were having a Christmas party when I was a young boy in the 80s, and my uncle, who was a minister from Switzerland, was visiting. And he was an outspoken minister. He was very involved. He wrote prolifically. And he was visiting at a Christmas party at our house. And one of those green cars drove up during the party. And my parents said, go into the kitchen. And all the kids were sent to the kitchen. And they came in and they grabbed the minister, and he was taken away and never seen again. That was Argentina in the 80s. I don't remember what year it started and when it ended. People were just disappearing. And when you see these trends, when you see things that don't make sense, when you see kids being sold for money, kids being sent to jail for money, private property being grabbed, not to build a school, but just raw power grabbing it to sell it for the money, because the government can do that. And then you see big business, and that's part of the protest, and there's some legitimate, even a broken clock is right twice a day, these Wall Street protests. People are angry about big business and government being in bed together, and there's legitimacy to that anger. But just stay aware, and really thank you all for being involved.
If you see something, say something.